Navigating today's real estate market can be tricky. Want to buy or sell a house, finance or insure a house, or stuck with a house and don't know what to do? Florida Talk Real Estate has been your local one-stop real estate shop since 2012. Get the advice you need from your local real estate pros. Here are your hosts, Jim DePola and Johnny C. live on Real Radio.
Hey, everybody. Can you hear me, Mike?
I can hear you. Johnny's muted.
Johnny,
there you go.
I was muted there. And good morning to you. Welcome to another edition of Florida Talk Real Estate, and happy New Year's Eve to you. Thanks for carving out a couple hours of infotainment on a Saturday morning for us. You're welcome to join us toll free at 877-927-6969 with your questions, comments, concerns in the world of real estate. Whether you're tuned in on the old terrestrial radio, 92.1 or 101.7, maybe you have a free download your iHeartRadio app that keeps us worldwide, or possibly streaming with us right out the gates on a Saturday. Florida Talk Real Estate is live on our Facebook page and on YouTube as well. That's Florida Talk Real Estate, LLC. They're on YouTube, streaming live on a Saturday and home of a ton of informational chunk videos. Great to have you with us on this New Year's Eve, Saturday morning. Johnny C., that's me, your air traffic control. Let's say good morning to Mike Rauch. That's the mortgage guy with the mortgage firm. Good morning there, Michael. How are you?
There he is. Good morning, Johnny C. Good morning, South Florida. Happy New Year. Happy end of the year. Final show of the year.
That's what I'm talking about. Put a nice bow on it for everybody. It's nice to see you. I hope you had a good holiday. We'll catch up here in a minute. Let's say good morning to the always festive Ross Komarinetz with Brightway Insurance, Juno Beach. Ross, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. Good to see everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's Eve to you as well. You always make me just have the biggest smile, Ross. You really make me happy. Thank you for always being so festive. And you are muted as well, Jimmy D. I'm just giving you a heads up that of course, is the Jimmy D I'm referring to is Jim DePola. He's our fearless leader for over a decade now. We'll be celebrating 11 years of Florida Talk Real Estate here before you know it. I told you for all this time that Jimmy D runs a top producing Keller Williams team. It's the Florida Home Pros team with Keller Williams Innovations. Jimmy D, that's Jim DePola. How you be, my friend?
Hey, happy New Year, everybody, and happy South Florida. Nice day out driving down here. I had it on mute because Mike gave me a good tip. When I'm typing, I'm trying to put the mute on so that you guys can't hear me typing. So anyway, I'm trying to get a little better.
You did it halfway through, and I was like, there goes Jim again. He's not muted, and he's typing all over Johnny.
I actually muted, and then it came off somehow. I don't know how it happened. Then I muted myself again. So anyway, nice. I'm trying to get better. You know, it's only taken us 10 years and 51 weeks
to get to this progress.
Yes, next Saturday, January 7th, will be our 11th year on this show. The 11th year. I can't even imagine when I sat in the I didn't actually sit in the big chair. Johnny sat in the big chair in Port St. Lucie studios, and I sat in Dr. Glenn's chair. And I remember sitting there every day saying, I can't believe I'm sitting here in Dr. Glenn's chair. So and now it's been 11 years. So I can't believe that it's been that long. We're going to talk about that next week a lot, but I just want to say I'm really excited about next week. Anybody listening to the show, if you're a fan, you've been a customer of Ross or Mike or Paul Krasker or Trident, or you got student loan debt taken care of us, anybody just like our show, next week, call in. I want to have as many calls next week as we can. I'm hoping to get a lot of customers and fans from our show to give us a call and just talk about their experiences. 11 years. I mean, it's really a crazy time, and we'll get into that next week. This week, though, we're going to go backwards in time. Not actually, I guess that's backwards in time too, but we're going to go back a little farther. I read something that was a little scary. They're thinking that the 1970s interior design might be coming back. Oh, can you imagine? So ain't coming back in my house, I'll tell you that. But we're going to talk about that and why I thought that was kind of interesting.
Well, what I love is for the conversations you've had where you're like, look, your kitchen is like 70s dated. And they're like, ooh, I don't know if I have the money. Now they're like, ooh, sweet spot. Let's hang in there.
Yeah, exactly. Let's hold off a little bit. We'll be back in the trends. It only took 50 years, right? So I'm going to talk about that. Of course, we're going to talk about the end of the year, what happened in the real estate market and kind of what we're expecting to happen in 2023. That's a big question mark there. We're also going to be talking about, I'm sorry, hold on here. We're also going to be doing a shout out to Daryl and Amy. Man, their story is so powerful about the power of Florida Talk Real Estate. Listen to this. So since 2013, Daryl and Amy have come to us to help do a loan modification to save their house back in the tough times 10 years ago. Okay. Amy turned to us for student loan consolidation. She's saved, let me see. Mike, real quick, let's see. $500 a month for 7 years. How much is that? So $500 a month times 12 is $6,000. $42,000 she saved on her student loan payments since she met us. Can you imagine $42,000? Is that crazy? Right? Then after they saved their house, they came back to us to sell the house many years later when their growing family needed a new home. Now we just sold that house and they're moving to South Carolina. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And along the way, they've got refis from Mike. They got loans from Mike, refis from Mike. They've turned to Ross for insurance. They use Paul Krasker for legal stuff. They use short sale innovation. No, they didn't never use short sale innovations because they did a loan mod. But they also use Trident Title to close several other things. We were just here this week closing on their sale of their home at Trident Title just a couple of days ago. So Daryl and Amy's story is really, in a way, the story of Florida Talk Real Estate in a way, and what we've created. And they're like a really prime example of what we were trying to create when we started and how we're able to help people. And I also want to
just real quick, this week, there's another Florida Talk Real Estate story that I think also illustrates the nature of the show. We happen to be working with a young woman who is out there buying her first home, and she was referred from her father, who Jim has said he's been listening for years, but you never did a home purchase or sale with him. But now we're helping out his daughter, and he's been around since the beginning.
That's right. Randy is I consider Randy a friend. I've known him so long. I know we've known him at least as long as the show. He's always been a big fan of the show. He's been involved in real estate. He's been involved in construction. Now he's a long haul trucker. He's loving his life, right? And he's doing long haul trucking, and he says he's just a blast. But we've introduced him to Paul Krasker for Clear to Sell, which is investment, an investment background check before you buy investment properties. And we've had him have many consultations with Paul. He's used Trident in the past, but we've never done anything together. But now we might be doing something. Mike just had a really good conversation with Randy's daughter, so I hope everything will work out well with that. We also have a new couple that we're going to be talking about today, Stanley and Mary. We're going to be selling their intercoastal waterfront property. We actually created a little video, and I think during the break, Jimothy, we're going to try to run that video during our commercial break. So we're going to try something new here and see what happens. Okay. Now, I don't know if that's going to go. That might not go over the regular terrestrial. That might just be for Facebook and YouTube. I'm not sure. Okay. So like if you're running your regular commercials, I think we could run that video, right?
Yeah. You brought it up, so you guys just can't talk.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's pretty easy. Hopefully I'll mute everybody. And the last thing I want to say is Ross, when I was driving down here today, this is what I was thinking, because we have another holiday show. And last week, I was thinking to myself, oh, you know what? What would Ross do for next week? And I'm like, I got to go get a party hat, and I got to get one of those little horn things with the little. I knew he would have it, right, with the tinsel on the end. I'm like, I have to do that because I'm going to be shamed by Ross. And then I was too busy. I didn't have time to do it. And then Ross plops into his chair, and of course, he's all geared up, ready to go. So thank you, Ross.
You're welcome. I couldn't find the 2023 glasses anywhere.
Oh,
Ross, is that one of those where if you blow super hard, it gives a god awful noise? Have you tested that?
We'll give it.
No, I was looking for something worse than that.
No, so not that bad.
Some of those I found, Johnny, if you blow on them like as hard as you can, hey Jimmy, they turn into like a dead duck on his dying quack.
Yeah, some definitely don't want a ton of airflow. That's for sure. Oh, yeah, nice.
Those are the more
Yes.
expensive ones. I can't spring for those.
It's
Not the way
budgetary.
2022's
At
been.
holidays. That's right.
I'm having a hard time. I'm taking it off of mute, and then when I go into type notes into YouTube and Facebook, it's changing around the screen and stuff. So sorry about that, guys.
It's all right.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start off at first with the shout out for Amy and Daryl. They just closed this week. I know I just talked about it a little bit. I just want to go into a little more detail about that. Later, you'll see a short. Actually, the video is actually for Stan and Mary about the condo, the intercoastal condo they're selling. So I apologize about that. But I wanted to talk about Daryl and Amy today because it really is a special story. And I was so happy when I was at the closing table with them because they're just a really great family. And they're going on, I always say that the way I look at my job is trying to help create the next chapter in people's lives and try to make sure that that chapter starts off right. And that the old chapter is closed off right when they're trying to make their transition. Because, when you're buying or selling a home, people forget about this in the profession. The average person is only going to do that like 5 to 7 times in their life, the whole life, right? Their whole life. And I actually bet if they did the statistics lately, I bet you it's closer to 5 than 7, because during that last during our last real estate crisis, not the one that we're going through right now, but when we had the big drop in 2008, it used to be 5 to 7 years is the average time that somebody lives in their house is 5 to 7 years, but it jumped up from 5 to 7 to something like 7 to 11 years or something like that. So I'm thinking that the average person stays, they're probably buying 5 houses a year in their whole life, buying and selling houses. So it's a big thing. It's a very big thing. And if you make the wrong decision, it really can affect your life. And sometimes that wrong decision could be not selling, or not buying at the time, not just making the decision to buy or sell. So with Daryl and Amy, they had come to us way back, I think it was 2013. And Daryl was working for a city building department. And Amy had just lost her job, and they were afraid that they couldn't make their mortgage payments. And I met with them, and I found out what their needs were, and they were thinking of short selling their house because they were a big fan. Daryl happened to be a big fan of the radio show. And we were talking about short sales and low months and everything like crazy back then. So he called us up. He was very nervous. I found out that Daryl and Amy are saints and that they've been foster care parents for many years before that. And they had at the time, I think, 3 foster kids at the time. And they were in the process of adopting them. And I sat down with them and I said, okay, if we short sell the house, they were very upside down, 6 figures upside down. Probably more than 150,000, maybe even 200,000 upside down. For a working class family, that's devastating. And when they lose their employment and they can't make their payments, it's just even tougher. So I said, if we short sell the house, we're going to try to make sure that the bank lets you walk away debt free. But then what are you going to do for living purposes afterwards? And their answer was they were going to rent. And when they told me how much they can afford, I was like, I don't know what their life is going to be like when they turn into renters, because either they're going to be in a very bad neighborhood with high crime and things, and they got 3 kids, right? These 3 young kids that they're raising, right? Or they're going to be in a house that's either not probably going to be in great condition. So I was like, we got to try to save this house. So we got him over to Paul Krasker. Paul, the law offices of Paul A. Krasker in West Palm. Paul was very well known back then and still is as a foreclosure defense attorney with a good reputation that he did what he said and said what he was going to do. He didn't just push you into things that he wanted to do. He gave you a choice of how you should handle your house situation and let you decide. That's why we joined forces back in the day. So we got him to the loan mod department. They negotiated. It took many months, probably 9 months of negotiating, and they got the loan mod. So they got a payment they can afford. They stayed in the house. Then not long after that, Amy came to me and said, Jim, I've got massive student loan debt. I'm paying something like $500 a month and I don't have a job. And I can't afford that either. And so we were like, we'll get you over to law office of Paula Krasker and do the student loan modification program. So Amy went over there. She was paying $500 a month back then. Now, this is 2014, okay? Because the student loan modification program that's out there right now and in effect right now, okay? This isn't like some program from 2014. You could call up today and get this for you right now. If you can't afford if you feel like you can't afford your student loan payments and they're government backed, you can get a program that charges you the monthly fee based on your ability to pay, which is a federally a formula created by the federal government to determine how much people should pay, regardless of how much they owe. So in Amy's situation, because she was unemployed, she had to pay $0 that year in 2014. And then over 15 years, whatever she's paid up to that point over 15 years in this program, the rest of it's forgiven. So when we're at the closing table, Amy reminded me about the student loan program because I had forgotten about it. And she told me that because she's still an at-home mom, every year she has to turn in paperwork to the federal government. She still has not made a payment to the student loan department since 2014, $500 a month. And all of those years count towards her 15 years of payments.
Yeah, they do.
So she only has like 8 years of payments. Right now, she's paying nothing. I found out something in this process. You don't have to pay anything on your student loan debt at $19,000 and change a year. So if you're making under $20,000 a year, you're probably going to pay nothing on your student loan debt or less, right? If that's your income, you're going to pay nothing. And then if you're making more than that, then they base the payment not on what you owe, but on the ability of what you could afford to pay. And then every year they check it. That's the trick, because Amy did the right thing. She came back to Krasker every single year and reapplied for the program, because you have to do that. That's the catch.
And,
right?
and they help you with, and they help her with that, right? I mean,
yeah, and it's a couple $100
yeah,
to have them do it, and they take care of the deadlines. You don't have to worry about, oh, did I hit the deadline? Did I forget to do it? You know, you pay a couple $100, and think about this: she was paying $500 a month.
yeah. But we did the math earlier. She saved so far $42,000.
Can you imagine?
No.
So we did. You know, we helped out that with Amy. Now, in the meantime, then what happened was, they came to us like 6 years later, and he's like, Jim, we've adopted all the foster kids, and we had a miracle baby, because that's what always happens when that happens, right? So they had their miracle baby, James. And they were like, our house is too small. We're busting at the seams. We got to get something new. Now, this was the upside down house that was over $150,000 upside down.
And
right?
they named their miracle baby after you?
I know. Is that funny? No, they did not. Actually, Daryl's middle name is James, so I'm sure that's where they did it, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah, that would be too crazy. So what ended up happening was we checked how much, whether the house was upside down or not. He had already completed his student loan, his mortgage loan modification, because it lasted for 5 years. He made a perfect payment history during that time. So now he's out of the student loan modification, kind of. And as far as his obligations for certain things on that. So he's able to, we were going to sell the house, but we found out that he's not upside down anymore. He was going to get equity, but we were going to have to get like the upper limits of what his house was worth. And that was going to give us enough equity to barely squeeze in to a 4 or 5 bedroom home in the area he wanted to live in. It was tight. And Mike was really heavily involved in this at the time, right, Mike? We had to go over the numbers over and over again on each house.
Yeah, it was kind of like, well, Jim, what are you going to sell it for? Jim, what's it going to sell for? You're doing your prediction, and we knew it had to get a number because he needed a certain amount of cash to, complete the new purchase.
And it was at the upper limits, and his house wasn't in perfect, pristine condition. There were deficiencies in it, deferred maintenance stuff, right? So the house wasn't in bad condition, but there was stuff that needed to be done to the house. So So trying to get that price was going to be a little tough. Mike kept putting pressure on me. He's like, you better get that price, Jim. You better get that price, because we really needed a certain price in order to get the house that they wanted to buy on the back end.
And I think there was, I remember a moment, Jim, if my memory serves, where you came and you say, "Hey, Mike, we got a couple inspection issues. How
Mhm.
much credit do we have to give?" And I probably looked at it and said, "Jim, you can't give them any more than this. Like, we need all of this money." And that actually, if I remember correctly, made your negotiations very easy. It was like, here's what we can offer. That's it. There's no more money. Sorry, take it or leave it.
Right. So that was one of the negotiations techniques we used, Mike. Exactly. So what we had done was basically say, when they came back, anybody that made an offer that was too low based on what we needed, we said, look, we're sorry. We're not saying that your offer is bad. It just doesn't work for us financially. And if we don't get a certain number on our house, we can't do what we need to do on the back end. So either you're going to give us what we want, or we don't have a match. Right. And it was kind of scary because this was a seller buyer situation. We haven't talked about that in a long time. Seller buyer, right? So what does that mean? I say it really fast. That means you're selling your house right now. You got to take that money right now and plunk it down on your new home and close on the same day, or you become homeless, right? So I call that the seller buyer situation. And so there was a lot of pressure there. 4 kids, wife, a husband, pets, right? Craziness. Got it done. Bought it the new home in Royal Palm. Got the 5-bedroom because they were looking at a couple 4-bedrooms, but we felt, they really needed a 5-bedroom. Got the 5-bedroom house, and check this out. They bought it in 2019. They just closed on the house. I think it was Wednesday of this week, right? And they are now moving to South Carolina, where we're helping them get an agent. We already placed them with an agent, a top Keller Williams agent in South Carolina, helping them look for their new home up there. And by the way, Mike is going to be the potential mortgage guy for that, because Mike can do South Carolina now.
Nice.
So he keeps expanding states. When we started, I think he was just Florida. I think when you started with us, you were just Florida at the time.
I could only do Palm Beach County.
You were slacker. Now you're in how many states?
Geez, it's not that many. So Florida, Georgia, it's a very weird mix.
Tennessee,
Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Virginia, and
Colorado. Yeah, Colorado. So
Johnny,
he's all
I got
over
you.
Yeah, nice.
So-
only 10% of the states.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's
So,
That's right.
so we did so well on that purchase that now we're selling it only 2.5, 3 years later, or 3 years later, and he netted 1/3 of his purchase price. What he paid that house for, he got 1/3 went into his pocket when he closed,
Huh.
right? So that gives him the chunk he needs to go up to South Carolina and get the new life that they're looking for, the new chapter of their life. They want to move to South Carolina. They have a lot of relatives up there. And he has a lot of job opportunities up there. So he wants to go up there. And he was from Arkansas, Daryl. So he really likes the country. So he's just missing the country too much. I mean, he's been a Florida boy for a long time, but he's really got Arkansas in his roots. So he's going back up north to be in the country.
I always think of North Carolina when I think of people, like the halfbackers, but South Carolina, I was reading the other day, has really had a pretty good population boom in the last year or two. They're like right below Florida for population growth.
I have 2 clients that are moving to South Carolina. We haven't seen South Carolina as much. I just want to wrap up with Daryl and Amy is saying along the way, Mike had refied their house when they needed a refi. No, Mike, didn't you refi their house?
I don't think I might have looked at it for him and probably determined that if I'm remembering, so he did something like a 5% down conventional loan, and so he would have had mortgage insurance, but his rate was probably below 4%.
Right.
So canceling MI might have been one factor for refi. I didn't do a refi for them, but that doesn't mean they didn't refinance. I certainly looked at it at some point.
And they used Ross for insurance products along the years for the homeowners insurance. They use Brightway Insurance, Juno Beach. The only office is Juno Beach office.
Why would you use anybody else?
I almost just want to call Ross the Juno Beach office and not say Brightway.
You want to hear a success story? We were waiting for a policy on a buyer. Home had some issues. Appraiser didn't really he gave us some items to fix, and then the insurance agent came back and said, Mike, we just can't do it. Now I'm looking in these, what do you call it, Ross? The excess and surplus. Yeah, and I'm looking over here. Of course, we need there's those policies are generally more expensive, and so it would have blown the DTI. Went to Ross's office. Finally, I convinced him. I said, hey, listen, let me just throw it at my guys. And I don't know, 30 minutes later, had a legitimate quote with the number that worked, and an hour later, we had the policy ready to go, and that file closed yesterday. So Ross and his guys came in and saved the day. So thank you, Ross.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah,
Not surprised, but very happy, but not surprised.
Yeah, and it's just like, I don't know how much work goes into that for them. It felt pretty quick and pretty painless, and it just makes me think, like, what could be so different for these other 8 guys? But I get Ross just, they know what they're about, man.
Juiced in.
They're juiced in. You know that.
It really makes a big difference on the insurance agent you use. Everybody just thinks it might just be like a slot that, it's just a function of what you have to do and it doesn't matter. Ross gave us really good tip last week about, like, if you have 2 quotes from the same insurance company, the insurance provider, from 2 different agents, and the numbers are different, you really got to take a look at that pretty carefully, because if the one number is lower than the other number, they're coming from the same insurance company, but different agents, they plugged in different numbers in there somehow. And you have to make sure that the numbers are the right numbers that are going to work for you when you have your emergency, because it sucks to find out after the fact that you don't have the insurance you think you have, but you didn't ask questions. So that was a really great tip you gave us last week, Ross.
Yeah, it's important. I mean, people just look at that bottom line, and then they don't understand that their deductible is incredibly high, and they don't have the coverage that they thought they did. So call the agent with the low quote and call the agent with the high quote and ask them to explain it and where to get the numbers from.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
What's this week's tip?
Happy New Year.
Well, the other thing.
Have a Happy New Year?
Yeah.
Well, I have a tip if he doesn't want to give the tip, okay? Because you gave us a softball, Mike. One of those 2 people that you're going to call is going to be Ross, right? So if you're going to get the couple quotes, make sure that Ross is in that mix, because I'm going to tell you, Ross, like Mike, is going to tell you the real deal, even if they feel that they can't get you the best deal. And if you find a better deal, they're going to tell you. I would go with the deal you have. I've seen that happen. It doesn't happen a lot because they're very competitive, but when it does happen, I've watched them time and time again do the right thing by saying, I've seen Mike do this. Hey, I can't get you better than that other person that you got the quote from. So, I could do the same thing, even if he can compete equally. He'll say, I can do what that person can do, but you should go with the person that you want to go with. He doesn't push the hard pressure down. He's just like, you should work with the person that you want to work with.
I'll take you a step further, Jimmy D. I've seen Ross and Mike both do the same. Like, oh man, I can't compete with that. But let me look at that and make sure you're not screwing yourself by going with that. And then sometimes they're like, yeah, that's amazing. You should jump at that, actually. I can recall a couple instances where that exact scenario played out. Like, I can't come close to that, and that looks legit. So, yeah, and cheers to you.
Yep, absolutely. So that's what this Florida Talk Real Estate team is about. The show is about putting together really great professionals in each of their fields, and we all work closely together. Look at what happened with Mike. Mike, he needed information fast. He needed accurate information. He calls up Ross. Ross is able to save the day, get the loan, close the loan. Now, Ross's answer might have been, can't help you, right? But I'm sure that if that was the answer going to be, it would be prompt, it would be fast, and Mike would be able to figure out the next step. So it's all really important about having the team. Another thing, I know we got we're almost at the half-hour mark, so I'd like to take the break. But one thing I wanted to say just about this, we had Vanessa, who is a first-time home buyer for us. She's on a very, very tight budget for her needs, and we've gone round and round it. And Vanessa's, pretty distraught, to be honest with you, that she hasn't found what she's looking for. Mike and I spent an hour and a half a couple of days ago where, in her search, there were only 13 properties available. And just check this out. During her live search, so we do a running search for our customers, the newest home on her running search was 22 days old, which means during that last 22 days, there have been no new properties that come on the market that met her criteria for financial and to like, conditions, area, type of house, things like that. So there hasn't been a new house on the market for 22 days when I was checking with Mike on Tuesday. So what we did? Mike and I went through all 13 properties, house by house, and figured out, can Vanessa afford it? And if she can't afford it, what would have to be the offer that would make her qualify for the mortgage, below the list price? How much low would she have to go? And we went through every single one. We found out of the 13, 5 were only for sures, right, at the list price, right, without any negotiation. And then because she's a single mom and super busy, I spent yesterday. I spent Thursday and I drove to all 5 properties and previewed the properties for her, right? And I went to each one and I checked them out. I even made videos of 2 of them for her so that she could she couldn't be on FaceTime with me because she was working, but I actually did like little walkthrough videos and showed all the deficiencies of the unit and then all the pluses of the unit so that it was almost like she was there. And she felt, we both decided that none of the houses really met her needs. There was one maybe, but it was on a Zoom road. And the traffic was just so blaring that I wasn't sure that it would be a good idea. So the good news is she has a long time before her lease ends, so she's not in a tremendous rush. But let me tell you, she felt so much better after all of that because she understood that, Mike cared, that I cared, we're making the extra effort to make it happen.
Yeah.
And we're also talking to Ross for Vanessa because the insurance rates really affect her purchasing power. So all of that stuff's involved, and that's what this team does. Johnny, if you don't mind.
We also have to be careful. Remember, Jim, there was the one house where the listing agent put the taxes on there, which is, on the listing, a lot of people will look at the property taxes that's on there as they're trying to calculate numbers, right? And so she's at the very edge of her budget, right, as far as qualifying and her personal budget. And Jim's like, oh my God, this has really low taxes. This is going to work in our favor because you can take advantage of that to some extent. And then we looked, it was the taxes from 2018 or something. The listing agent put the lowest tax that he found in the past,
I saw 3 of those listings, Mike, when I started going through the 13, 3 of them were like that. And I wonder if the agents are actually putting old tax bills because they're usually auto-populated. And it was so unusual to see 2018 tax bills in an MLS listing. It's just so weird.
There must be some advantage to like putting in a low tax number, but it's really, if you're not on your toes, Johnny, that can catch you out.
Yeah.
Because if you're like, oh look, this one, like I have my pre-approval tool, right, where the agent or the consumer, the buyer, is meant to put in the annual taxes, and if they're relying on the listing as opposed to the property appraiser, that can come back and bite you, right? You get really excited and then it comes to me and I'm not going to make that mistake, right? And so I'll say, oh, wait a second, no. That $2,500 a month payment that you just calculated, it's actually $2,800. Sorry.
Well, this one was, I think, a big deal. I think it was $750 or something like that for the year, and it was
versus
really
4,000.
it was something like 4,000.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the heck? Anyway, we're going to take a break. On the flip side, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the market update. And then after that, we're going to talk about, are we turning into a 1970s interior design trend? And I hope to God it doesn't happen. I like the 70s show, but I like it because it's reminiscing, and I don't want to see Harvest Gold anymore. Yeah, are you ready for that carpeting?
Leave nostalgia for us to be nostalgic about, please. Great to have you with us on a Saturday. If it's your first time, you kind of heard through that first segment there of what the power of this team really truly is. And Jim noted that next week we're going to be celebrating 11 years of Florida Talk Real Estate here on Real Radio. And this team was put together 11 years ago. of pros. They're experts in their field. Look, there's lots of people that are great at what they do. But if you can put them all in one hub, you may refer to it as a one-stop real estate shop. Aha, yes, Florida Talk Real Estate is a .com. We call it your one-stop real estate shop for a reason. You have access to pros. These are experts in their field. And if you've been listening for long enough, you hear story after story, example after example. We just gave you a bunch about how these teams, it just integrates. You get conversations between all these pros to make sure what you're trying to get done is done timely, efficiently, and the way that we're all kind of hoping it gets done, with you with a smile on your face at the end of the day and referring to your friends and family, the best team in the business. Been running it in South Florida for a long time. That's why I'm here every Saturday as it says on the Facebook feed, your host extraordinaire. I just couldn't be more proud to stand behind these guys and say, man, this is my team. You should use them. They make me look good on the regular. Feel good about the people you're working with. Go to floridatalkrealestate.com. Buying a home, selling a home, stuck with a home, you don't know what to do. You're struggling with property insurance, student loan debt, everything that you can think of that touches the world of real estate. We can literally put you on a pros pro to feel like, hey, I'm in great hands. I'm getting great advice, and I can make a good decision for me and my family moving forward based on what they are presenting me. Florida Talk Real Estate. Know it, use it, love it, share it. Great to have you with us on a Saturday. Happy New Year's Eve. Back 4 minutes from now, and we're back on Real Radio.
The visual aid you need for all the freaky stuff we talk about on the radio. Find it at realradio921.com.
From the Gordon Partners Weather Center, have you or a loved one been injured through no fault of your own? Call 561-333-3333 or go to fortheinjured.com.
I'm meteorologist Jennifer Collins with CBS 12 News. Mostly sunny through this afternoon, still warm with high temperatures in the low to mid 80s and a south wind between 5 and 10 miles per hour. Quite and comfortable for this New Year's evening as temperatures return to the 60s after midnight with patchy dense fog developing again Sunday morning.
This report is sponsored by InvisibleFence.com. For the past 50 years, Invisible Fence brand has set themselves apart through their exclusive training program. Offering customized, in-person training for each pet on their system leads to a 99% success rate and has helped them protect more than 3 million pets. To learn more, visit InvisibleFence.com.
Hey, it's your boy Johnny C here, host of Florida Talk Real Estate. They're tops when it comes to helping people buy and sell houses. But Florida Talk Real Estate is so much more than that. For 5 years, I've watched these guys help thousands of our listeners with any real estate need. They couldn't do it without their sponsors, who are experts in their fields. Check it out. Jim DePola, powered by Keller Williams Realty. Their team specializes in helping people sell their house for top dollar, and buyers get great deals on the purchase of their home. That's what they did for me and my family, and I couldn't be happier that I hired them for my real estate transaction. Mike Rauch from the mortgage firm is one of our favorite guests on the show, and he is the mortgage guy. Whether you're looking for a refi or a mortgage to purchase a new home, Mike Rauch will get you the answers you need. The mortgage firm is licensed to do loans in Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia, and they have local offices that cover all of South Florida. So if you're thinking about a refi or a new mortgage, go to the mortgage guy, Mike Rauch, and find out what he can do for you. The Mortgage Firm, Inc., NMLS 189233, Florida license MLD 78, equal housing lender. The law office of Paul A. Krasker has been specializing in real estate law for nearly 25 years and has the professional team you need. Upside down with your house, Paul's team can help you conduct short sales, loan modifications, even if you're behind on payments. They also help you with foreclosure defense and bankruptcy. They can even help you get a student loan modification and repair your credit to get the score you need. Paul's full-service team has helped thousands of our listeners, and they can help you too. Trident Title LLC is the largest privately owned title company in Florida. When you need a title company to complete a refi, home purchase, or sale, Trident Title has got you covered. Not only do they offer competitive pricing, Trident Title has attorneys on staff to make sure if you have bumps in the road declaring title that you can get the job done. Beware, not all title companies in Florida have attorneys on staff. Trident Title does and complies with all the new federal regulations released last year. Ross Komarinetz, owner of Brightway Insurance, has been helping our listeners get great rates on homeowners insurance plans. Haven't checked your homeowners insurance policy in a while? This is a great way to help reduce your monthly mortgage payment. Ross can also help with renters and auto insurance. Ross is only a phone call away and can usually get the answers you need same day.
Call Ross today at 561-425-6228 or drop by his office at 873 Donald Ross Road in Juno Beach.
So now you know why I'm happy to be part of the Florida Talk Real Estate Show, the longest running real estate show in Florida. And all these sponsors are just a phone call or a click away. Just call 888-973-7828. That's 888-973-7828. Or go to floridatalkrealestate.com. That's floridatalkrealestate.com. And don't forget to use the most accurate search engine to find your new home or ask for a free home valuation because floridatalkrealestate.com has you covered. That's floridatalkrealestate.com.
This is Real Radio 92.1 and 101.7. Real talk for the Palm Beaches and the Treasure Coast. This is Florida Talk Real Estate with Jim DePola and Johnny C. Got a question for the show? Call us live at 1-877-927-6969.
That's it. Your toll-free number. It is absolutely working. I promise if you dial it right now, our man Jimothy, producer extraordinaire, he's going to go ahead and line you up there. You make the call, we'll take that call at 877-927-6969. And that's involving anything. Questions, comments, concerns in the world of real estate. Maybe it's a little bit more jovial approach. It is a New Year's Eve. You're welcome to bring a little fun, frivolity, some mirth, if you will, to the program. I'm your boy, Johnny C. Thanks for being with us, whether you're on the old radio, maybe the iHeartRadio app, free download, or streaming with us on a Saturday. Florida Talk Real Estate, not only at .com, you can find us on Facebook, streaming live. Great to have you with us. Also on YouTube, Florida Talk Real Estate, LLC. That is the home of a ton of informational chunk videos, and we stream live on a Saturday. Great to have you with us. Johnny C., that's me. Mike Rao, the mortgage guy from the mortgage firm. He's with us on a Saturday. Hi, Michael.
I am with you on this Saturday. Yes, sir.
Great to have you with us on this Saturday.
Thank
always
you.
Nice to see you. Speaking of great to have and always nice to see, the very festive Ross Komarinetz with Brightway Insurance, Juno Beach. What's up, Ross?
Not a lot. Juno, that's right. Happy New Year.
And Jimmy D's with us too, y'all. And of course, that is Jim DePola. He is with the Florida Home Pros team. Keller Williams Innovations is where you find that top producing Keller Williams team. Jimmy D, how you be?
Hey, happy New Year's, everybody. I can't believe that 2022 is over. So looking forward to 2023. Hopefully a lot of exciting things are going to be happening, not just with this team, but with the show. And we'll talk about that next year. Hopefully everything, the plans I have are going to work. So we'll see how it's going. Johnny, guess what I had done just recently? I'm gonna probably put them out next week for the show. I have all the old videos, the raw videos of when I asked you and Dr. Rich and Dr. Glenn and Dano to. This is in 2012 when we first started the show. We were trying to raise money for the Love Doctor charities. The last year the Love Doctor charities were around. And we were trying to do a deal where anybody that liked the Florida Talk Real Estate show during a certain period of time, the sponsors were going to put in $1 or $2 for every like we got, up to $6,000, I think, to give to the Love Doctor charities.
I remember that.
So I think
Like
we were trying to get
like.
Yes, a Facebook like. So the theme of the program, or whatever you want to call it, was if you love the Love Doctor charities, you got to like Florida Talk Real Estate, right? So that was my play on words, right? So I have the raw videos of when you did it, when you did a little promo, because we were short. Paul Krasker was such a big help with that. And he says, I'll tell you what, I'll give you $2 for every like if you get at least 1,500 likes, and you have to have it by this date. And it was right about this time of the year, right? It was right around Christmas time, actually. And if we didn't get it by that deadline, he wasn't going to give anything. So it was either all or nothing. We had to get the 1,500. Then the other sponsors were kicking in money, so it came out to a total of 6,000 if we can make it happen. Well, I became obsessed with it. My old business partner, Rob, he's like, yeah, whatever happens, happens. I'm like, no, we have to do this for the Love Doctor charities. And we were short by hundreds within like 2 weeks. And I was freaking out because we had a pretty long time. We started in the summer. So finally, I was like, the only way this is going to happen, because we were a brand new show and people didn't know about as much. I was like, I got to get the Love Doctors and everybody involved in this. It's their charity, darn it. You know?
Is this before the days, Jim, when you could sub out your likes to like, foreign countries?
Oh yeah, but we still don't have that many likes on our page because I don't do that. I don't pay for likes, right? If you like us, you like us. If you don't, you don't. But please like us. It makes a difference. But we don't promote it that much, and we definitely don't pay for likes.
Is that why you have 200 Facebook profiles?
Yeah, exactly, right.
He's like Jim Zipola, Jim Zipola Z, Jim Zipola
yeah,
Z1.
exactly, right. So what happened was we were on the show live and we were like 40 likes short. And if we didn't get it that day, it was the last day of the deadline Paul gave us, right? And Paul wasn't messing around. He was like, I'm going to give you the money, but you got to do what this is. So I was freaking out. We had like 40 short, or maybe it was even less than 40. We were live on air. And me and Johnny were pushing it the whole show. And then we were monitoring it. It was pretty cool. And we were monitoring. It's like, wow, only 7 likes more. Come on, guys. You can do it. 7 likes. And the clock's ticking because we only had an hour-long show back then. And I'm like, oh my God, are we going to make it or not make it? And we did. We broke it live on air. We broke the 1,500. I was so happy. It was so awesome. Wow. But we have those old videos. And the reason why I'm bringing them up was one of the guys in our office, Paul, who has a pretty nice YouTube channel called Palm Beaches Paul, right? If you ever want to check like lifestyle stuff, Paul Likens. He is a huge Real Radio fan. Right. The whole, for a long time fan. So we started talking about all you guys, right? Because, he wants to know about all the personalities, trying to get inside stuff. So he's asking about Dr. Rich and Dr. Glenn. And, I'm trying to explain to him, I don't know these guys. They're not like my buddies and I hang out with them or anything. But, but I could tell you what it's like.
But I sat in their chair.
Chairs, used their microphone. Got them upset about the way we used the studio. Remember the lizard?
Oh yeah, sure.
Remember the lizard with the light that went out?
Yeah.
On the coffin.
Messing with Love Doctor stuff. And for those, if you're newer to this show, you're like, who is this Love Doctors you speak of? This is like the centerpiece for what this radio station was built on over the years. They've retired since. But so if you're newer in the last handful of years to Real Radio, you're like, not totally getting the reference. Well, that's why. But if you're a long time, you're like, oh yes, now you're talking to me. This is my music right here. Dr. Rich, Dr. Glenn, Dano, Terrence the Hare, that old school Love Doctors ways.
Yep. And they were around for more than 25 years, I think.
A long time. Yes.
Yeah, definitely over 20 years. And they were the anchor of the station, and they really kind of set the culture of the station in a way.
Not kinda.
Yeah. They created the culture, not just set it, but they were the creators of the culture, set the standards. I try to stay by that bar. I was such a big Real Radio Love Doctors. The thing I liked about that show so much is that they were trying to impact the community. And sometimes impact to the community is just make your day better when you're driving to work or driving home for work or whatever, right? I mean, that is impacting the community. But they did so much, like when the hurricanes came during those 04, 05 hurricanes, and they were all coming. The Real radio station was a lifeline to many, many, many people at that time. And those guys were working 24/7. I really wish they would have kept the Love Doctor charities going. I really loved the end of the year thing where they did the 24-hour show, holiday show. I wish they would bring that back. But, we're the last standing show that's connected to the Love Doctors, other than I think the sports show. Well, no, that's not true.
We're
And then
one
the
of, we got,
penthouse.
Jim,
And then
we're
the
one of
penthouse.
literal 2 live and local shows.
Yeah, I'm
On
sorry.
the radio
yes.
station.
Yeah, and then
Yes.
and you know, and we're still standing here. You know what I mean? And we even outlived the unfortunately, and I'm not saying this with glee, but we even outlived the fishing show. So now it was like we're the longest running non iHeart paid show on this station now, and I'm kind of proud of that. You know, I'm proud that we've created that, and hopefully, and that's because of the fans that listen to the show and then call us up and ask for help and have questions, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, so live and local, it's us, and I should say 3 because locker room and penthouse.
Yeah, yep. And okay, so getting into the market. So this is the last week of the year. We won't have December's stats until about January 15th or something. So we only have through November. So this is what they were telling us a year ago this week. The economists are saying that we would be at barely 5% for interest rates and that we would still see double-digit appreciation. This is December 2021, talking about where we'd be today. We'd have double-digit appreciation and that the market would still be super, super strong, but it wouldn't be as strong as maybe as it was at that point in December. They thought it was going to cool off slightly, but overall be pretty strong. Now, let's think about that for a second. The idea of appreciation being 10%, just to put that in perspective, normal appreciation in Florida over the last 30 years or so has been 3 to 4% appreciation per year. So 10% appreciation is like 2.5 years or 3 years of appreciation in 1 year, right? And we've been seeing double-digit appreciations or close to double-digit appreciations for many years in a row. And that obviously isn't sustainable. So when they were telling us last year, yeah, the interest rates are going to raise to about 5%, maybe 5.25. Those were the doom and gloomers, were 5.25. And that we were going to go through this soft transition into increasing mortgage rates. My opinion on that back then was you're on crack, because the last time the Feds raised the rates was in 2018. And when they started raising the rates, we had the fastest increase in in mortgage rate increase from the Fed reserve rate. The mortgage rates went up the fastest ever in the history of the United States recorded. So then they scaled back because of COVID. And then when they were going to turn on increasing the Fed interest rates again, I'm like, why won't that trend that happened in 2018 come back? And that's exactly what happened. As the Feds raised the rates, we went from 3.11 at the beginning of the year, and now we're at this last Thursday. We have a new thing, Mike. We were 6 weeks in a row with mortgage rates going down for 6 weeks in a row, but then this week we broke that string. So on the 7th week we went up. So we're now at the end of the year, we're at 6.42 for Freddie Mac, right? That's probably where we're going to close out, because this is the last Thursday year, was 2 days ago. So we're going to close out at 6.42. So we started at 3.11 and went to 6.42. So we're only about 1.25 points above what the doom and gloomers were saying last year, which is tremendously high, which is more in line of what I thought. I didn't think we would hit 7, which we did it, in October. We hit it in July and October, but we hit 7.08 twice this year. That would bring us, but even today's interest rate at 6.42, we're talking about 2008 when that interest rate was common.
I'm trying to think, Jim, if I look back and say, was anybody predicting we would go from, say, 3 point something to 7 point something, right? Or even 6 point something. I don't know how many people were anticipating that much movement. Except for, and I'm saying you do, but over the show, the history of the show, Johnny has talked many, many times about, and he's like not the expert on the show, but he's got, he knows enough to be dangerous. He's talked about normal interest rate ranges, right? 7 to 9%, kind of like as a normal, like where should things kind of be? And hopefully, we don't sit at the upper end of that, that 9% number. It'd be crazy for us. But who thought that we would move up three percentage points in 1 year, right? That was a hard one to predict. So that's what happened.
When was the last time you saw a move like that? I mean, have you seen a move like that before? That drastic?
I mean, not since I've been in the business, but there's a long history before I've been in it. Year over year. That's a good question.
I'm sorry, what I missed that because we just lost our Facebook feed and I was trying to fix that. What did you just say?
When have we seen a 3 percentage point increase in 1 year in a 12-month span?
I think we would have to go back to the 1980s, the early 1980s, Ross, if it even happened ever. It might not ever happen, but you don't get to 18. You don't get to 18% interest rate like we were in 1983 without having huge increases, because that's where we were in 1983 was 18%.
Let's see. I'm going to try and find. So April of 1983, we're at 10.9. April of 84, we're at 13.8. So there you go.
All right.
Big chunk.
Yeah. So
83. Jim called it back in his heyday.
So I'm just like I'm kind of wonky about this stuff, guys. I don't know how I know some of the stuff I know. And then
were you here? You were here in South Florida in '83, right?
No way. He was holding down the bar at the Purple Porpoise.
Yes, I was. Oh, well, no, that was 80. That was 80. You're right. It was 83 through 87.
Did you have a white suit?
No.
Like with the pastel T-shirt?
No, but I have to admit that in high school I did take disco lessons for like 4 weeks. Can you imagine?
So let's bring it back from last week. Did you have the Italian horn?
No, I didn't ever wear the Italian horn. I thought it was too goombage.
Okay, too really?
Yeah, it was too much for me. It was like
wait a second.
too ethnic.
Are there any beta or VHS tapes of you in disco class? Because I want to see Betamax.
No. But my wrestling coach, when he found out, made me dance in front of the whole wrestling team and show my disco moves, which I sucked at, by the way.
I love it. He's like, you either do that or you do Naked I'm a Little Teapot. You decide.
Now, hold on. Now you're making me think, Jimmy, your wrestling days. I know you've talked about this. What weight class were you?
Oh, most of the time I was 114, 121. So I was a skinny guy.
I was 120. Imagine 120-pound Jim doing John Travolta moves.
Yeah, John Travolta stuff. I remember what you used to say. I remember it was 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6. I remember. I remember the cadence. I don't remember how to do it.
This weekend.
Wait, say that again, Ross.
It's ABBA Mania at the Jupiter Theater this weekend. So if this is bringing up some disco for you, you can go check out ABBA.
So it's ABBA or ABBA?
No, it's ABBA.
Johnny?
ABBA.
I'm going ABBA.
Okay.
Yeah, ABBA. How could you not know that?
I don't know. Because in my head, it's always ABBA. But I'll take ABBA.
Well, now we know what Jimmy's doing.
Yeah, so the interest rates, get back to interest rates. So the interest rates, they went up way higher than all the national experts are predicting. So what are they predicting next year for interest rates? Okay, what they're thinking is that the interest rates are going to stay relatively high all the way through June, July, and then June, July, early fall. Okay, so maybe that's July, August, that we're going to start seeing an easing of the interest rates. So they think it's going to happen like 6 months from now, 8 months from now is where interest rates are going to start going down. They're also predicting, let's talk about prices. Okay. So I'm going to use Palm Beach County as the example, but almost every county that we cover, which is 6 counties, right? We cover Indian River, St. Lucie County, Palm Beach County, Broward County, Dade County. I'm missing somebody. Martin, thank you. Sorry about that. And I love Martin County. So our team physically covers all that. We have people all over the state that covers the rest of the stuff for us. But all the 6 counties I'm talking about are pretty much the same trending. It's just a little bit of different numbers because different markets. But in Palm Beach County, for example, we got as high as 20% appreciation this year from the beginning of the year until June. We went up 20% in 6 months for the single family home median sales price. 20% in 6 months. Okay. And now we're down to about 10% appreciation. Okay. So we still had 10% appreciation this year, but we lost 10%. We lost half of the appreciation that we got for the peak of the year. Right. So how did that work? For the beginning of the year, as the interest rates were going up, buyers were going into a frenzy. They wanted to beat out the higher interest rates, and they were offering whatever they had to offer in order to get into the house, which was bringing us up to 100%, 102% of contracted price compared to list price. So people were just throwing money at whatever house, and a lot of times they were waiving inspections. Our people didn't do that, but people were waiving inspections. They were paying above appraised value without even blinking. If they could do it, they were doing it. And that's the way things were going. And the appraisers were being very cooperative with these price increases. That was a little surprising to me, is to see how flexible the appraisals were based on this fast moving market going up. I thought the appraisers would kind of put some brakes to this stuff, but it didn't really happen. I'm not blaming the appraisers because the market held. I mean, we're not in some kind of crash or something. So nobody was doing anything nefarious. It was just a strong market. And then what happened was, once we got to June, July, there was like a mortgage interest rate hangover where the buyers were just saying, no mas, man, I can't take it. I just can't take this. I'm not paying 7% or 6.5% for that piece of you know what that I have to fix up and do all this stuff. I'm just not doing it. So then what happened is the sales dropped tremendously. Right now we're down about 30 in November. Our sales were down 34% in Palm Beach County for single family homes, not prices, sales. So the amount of closings dropped by a third, right? That's amazing. That's a very, very big drop. I haven't seen drops like that since the real estate crash back in the day. So
well, it's by design, though. I mean, let's be really clear. Like the whole action put in place was in the name of inflation, but clearly the efforts were to slow the housing market. Clearly.
Well, the reason why is, I think, Johnny, I've been thinking about that and reading a lot of like wonky stuff about it. First of all, they only got blunt tools. So when they raise interest rates, the things that are going to be affected most are cars, credit cards, and anything with loans, right? So all those get affected the same, and housing is the biggest out of that. So that's why it's so glaring effect on the housing market. But also, I also think they like it that way. Even the feds don't want to say it, kind of like what Johnny's hinting at. Well, not even hinting, being very clear about it. But because the housing market infiltrates so many other industries, right? So when you have the housing market, when you're buying a house, people go to Home Depot and Lowe's and go buy stuff. They buy paint and they rip out kitchens and bathrooms, and they're paying for that kind of stuff. So that adds a whole economy there. You got the mortgage industry, the title industry, the real estate agents, all of that economy's humming when a sale happens, right? So then you have contractors involved to do the stuff, like service people, like contractors come to the house and do all that stuff, right? So all of those things are being affected by this one transaction. And that's why it spills into so much other stuff. So when the housing goes high and the sales slow down, it slows down a lot of other things that you wouldn't think of. You don't think that slowing sales are going to affect Home Depot unless you like really think about it all the time.
Sure. And then, as you say, they kind of are connected in a lot of ways. So even you were involved, you saw it. If anybody tried to buy a vehicle in the last couple of years, new or used, you were like, what is happening right now? And that's really cooled off too. In fact, we're starting to see an uptick in the take back from the bank too.
Yes.
The old wrecker's pulling up to a lot of people, and the repo guy is jumping out and taking you a ride. Don't fall victim like I did one day. I remember I called my mom. I'm like, Mom, someone stole my car. She goes, son, when was the last time you made a payment? It's like, I don't know, man, 4 or 5 months ago. She's like, yeah, no one stole your car. It's got repossessed, son. I was like, oh.
I actually had a repossession in my life one time. It actually happened to me. And the funny part is, I'll never forget this. It's probably why I got the divorce. Right? So what happened was I wake up in the morning, I go outside to get the daily paper. Right. This is when I was living in Delray, and I go out to get the daily paper, and I'm in a robe. I almost felt like I was James Gandolfini in Sopranos. Right. So I'm walking down my driveway with the robe, my hair all scruffed up, and I'm tired. And I pick up the newspaper and I open it up, pull it out of the plastic. I'm reading the paper as I'm walking back to the house. I'm like, wait a second, where's my car? And I'm standing where my car was, where I parked it the night before, and it's not there. And I wish somebody had filmed it, because I do just what you do on TV. You start looking down the street and stuff like the car was like just driven like a couple of feet away, right? It's like, why would you do that? It's like,
or like, where did I park this thing?
And I'm standing in their driveway, and I looked at it, and then I realized that at first I thought it was stolen first, then I realized it was repoed. And and I remember I walked into the house, I just started laughing, and I go, hey, our car's gone. And the wife was like, what are you talking about? And I go, I think we got repoed. Now here's the funny part. It was a Highlander. It was a Toyota Highlander.
Oh, I had a Lincoln Town Car.
They were very popular at the time. So when we tried to get it back that day, they wouldn't give it back to us, even though they had to, because there's a redemption period, and we jumped on it right away, and we were going to pay it off right away so we could get the car back. They didn't want to give us the car back. They tried to do everything. Oh, well, it's already on its way to so-and-so. I'm like, no, we have a redemption period, right? And anyway, we got the car back, but we almost didn't get the car back. We almost lost it to repo, because we found out later it was such a valuable car on the used car market that they didn't want to give it back to us. But standing in that driveway looking around thinking that the car disappeared, like it went down the street or something, I'm like, why do you do that?
Oh, to be young and dumb again. I remember all I cared about was getting my basketball and my Florida Gator blanket out of the trunk.
Well, yeah, at least you got to get your stuff.
Yeah, that's all I cared about. Yeah, stupid.
So with the we were talking about how the economy is spilling all over, how it's changing dramatically. And so in 2023, where do they think we're going to be as far as sales? So they think what's going to happen is we're going to see, this is how they described it. So really they have an out on every way: slight appreciation, slight depreciation, or flat. That's what they're predicting this year. So you know what that means? We don't effing know. We have no idea what's going to happen next year. And really,
no, but they're saying slight in any direction. So no big movements. Nobody's predicting big movements.
They say it's going to be a blah year, and it's not going to be a seller's market. It's not going to be a buyer's market. The prices aren't going to drop as much as the buyers want it to, and the interest rates are going to come down, but not very fast. And they're probably going to stay around in the sixes, is what they're thinking. They think what we have now is about where we're going to be by the end of next year, is what they're thinking. That's an interesting take on it, because I think the Fed has still indicated that they're going to keep fighting inflation, right, Johnny? Like they kind of have this plan. I don't know how many details are out about exactly what they're doing, but I think if I were predicting this year, the Fed is still going to keep pumping their rate a little bit at a time. Maybe 2-3 increases throughout the year. Mm-hmm. And if we hold steady in the sixes, I think we should be thankful for that. That would be good. If we're in the sixes, that's where we were before the real estate market crash in 05-06, right? So we would be in the same interest rates where we had the strongest real estate market before the last one. Right before our last one, which just happened. Bless you, Ross. So, if that happens, we had the strongest real estate market ever when we were in the sixes. Okay, back in the old days, right? But it was based on BS mortgages and stuff. This time it's not. Yep. This time all the mortgages are legit, and we haven't had really crazy mortgages come out. Even the ones that are the buy down mortgages that we've been talking about, where you could buy down the points, they're very conservative. They're not like giving you teaser rates that, you have to qualify for the end rate that you're paying for in these adjustable rate mortgages. Now you have to afford it now.
That's a
And
good
then
thing,
you're
though. I
getting
mean,
a
that the stability there is that's a beautiful. I'm glad to hear that because we've all been told that these entities are too big to fail. So let's set it up so you don't.
Yeah, exactly. So we haven't had the crazy teaser rate mortgages and stuff in order to entice people to buy properties. Now, we'll see how long the mortgage companies, the mortgage industry can hang on that because, just like every American industry, they're all gluttonous pigs and they wanted to make as much money as they can. That's just the way businesses are built. I'm not blaming any industry, but they're all trying to make as much money as they can as fast as they can. But the mortgage industry specifically has proven more than one time that they will eat their own in order to make a profit. So they'll make a profit right now and not worry about what's going to happen down in the future, even though you could see exactly that there's going to be a big crash at the end of the road. And they just don't care. They just like make the profit now, right? We're not really seeing that so far this time. Everybody's been pretty conservative. Maybe everybody learned that you don't ever want to do that again and be there. So I actually feel like that's a good thing. So we are in a completely different market. So anybody who's thinking that they can judge what's going to happen now or in the future based on what happened in the last quote crash, okay, we're not. This is a completely different situation. And if you're trying to do that, you're really comparing apples to oranges.
Absolutely.
Limes or something even further away from apples than an oranges.
Yeah, actually, yes.
Right? Like Johnny's probably the most conservative outlook, I think, of any of us as far as what the near-term future holds. Like you're not, Johnny, in your brain, you're not predicting a big housing crash, right? Like as far as values. No. And I think that the value crash was compounded all of the other issues, right? So people just like you talked about Daryl and Amy earlier, like they lose, $150,000, $200,000 of equity in a matter of months. And it's like, well, why keep paying? And how many people had that mentality? Not that they couldn't pay, but why keep paying, right? Just because they lost value. And so I think as long as values hold, right, that doesn't mean there's not going to be some depreciation, but just not a huge chunk. I think that things will remain relatively strong.
So here's the one thing that I can see happening though is I think in a handful of years, as things kind of settle in and the gears are all like we're back to chugging along, I think there's going to be so much deferred maintenance on these homes, on a bunch of homes. Mine's one. So much deferred maintenance that doesn't get dealt with that when people finally are like, "Oh, I think I'm in a position right now," I don't think their equity positioning in their homes are going to be quite what they were thinking because of the buyer perspective of, man, I got to do a lot to this house. Now, the equity positioning might be there, but I think the negotiating prowess is going to be super important. FloridaTalkRealEstate.com gets you with people that are great at what they do. But I think you're really going to have fine-tuned expertise when it comes to your agents. Always the case, but I really think we're going to find ourselves in that market here in the next handful of years because, man, there's going to be a lot of money to be lost and gained in these transactions just through negotiation. As always, again, pretty obvious statement, but I think it's going to be really, really obvious in a couple of years because that deferred maintenance is just going to be kicked.
It's affecting people right now, Johnny. You're 100% right. When I was going through Vanessa's stuff with her, we were going over the properties I previewed for her that we talked about a little earlier in the last segment. She's a first-time home buyer with us. She is paying, like, I'm making up numbers here, okay? So it's not real stuff because I don't want to give out personal information. But let's say that she's paying $2,300 a month for her rent right now, okay? We were looking at one house that was a maybe. It wasn't like a slam dunk, but it was a maybe. And she was going to have to pay $2,700 a month for that unit, right? For the unit she was going to buy, right? So based on that, she goes, I don't want to pay $400 a month for that unit because there's too much work that needs to be done to it. And I'm going to be at the upper limits of my budget and I'm not going to have any money to put into the house. right? Because 2,700 is really going to make her tight. So that house, if she had the money to do fixing up, she might make the offer, but now she's not making an offer on it all because at that price, even though that she could afford the loan, she doesn't like the deferred maintenance on the property. So she's not making the offer. And I don't blame her. She has to work within what she's able to. Now, somebody that is on a tight budget, but has the money to fix it up, or they don't mind putting the sweat equity into it, like doing the work themselves to save money. Vanessa's not in that situation. Like I mentioned, she's a single mom with 2 kids and she's running around like a nut all the time. So she's not going to be going there and painting the house and, tiling the floors herself or something like that. Right. But somebody that could do that, that might be a good house for them. Right. That might work.
And there also might be an opportunity there negotiating some sort of credit out of the seller. Right. And then you can, maybe use some of that found money. So you're paying a little bit, you're basically paying what they want on the list price, but then you're negotiating as healthy a seller credit as possible to maybe cover some of that maintenance that needs to be done to get it. So you want to, so it's ready to move in for you, whatever that is. So, and I think there's going to be opportunities like that, Johnny. So you have deferred maintenance, but you got people still wanting top dollar for the deferred maintenance home. Maybe you can negotiate some sort of middle ground there that helps keep cash in your pocket.
And that's what John was saying about having a good negotiator at the time. And one of the things that our stats have proven at the Florida Home Pros with Keller Williams, my real estate company, the whole time we've been on the show, the whole 11 years now, we've always beat the county median averages. So we sell faster in time frame. We sell faster than the average properties in the areas we cover. We sell at a higher price than what the average sale is in that community. We're doing that all the time. And those are the 2 things that sellers are most concerned about, right? When are you going to sell my house? Are you going to sell it in my time frame, meaning the seller's time frame? And are you going to get me a price that's competitive with what's going on in my neighborhood? I don't want to be the lowest sale in the neighborhood, right? I don't even want to, sometimes they don't want to even be the average sale in the neighborhood, the median sale. They want better than that. So you try to work on that really hard and having the right negotiators. And then on the buyer's side, understanding the market enough to know if the price is overpriced when you're going in and talking about that and negotiating it almost before you turn in the offer. Well, what happens if the house doesn't appraise? We're going to use a loan. What happens if the house doesn't appraise? What are you going to do then? Right? Why do I want my buyer to spend the money on the inspection for the house if we don't know that the appraisal is going to work? Right? And if they start giving me junk about that, I'm going to say, you're the one that set the price. And you're the one that said in the listing that you could do FHA financing, conventional financing, VA financing. So you're saying we're putting it at this price and we'll take this kind of financing. But then you're saying, but we're not going to back that the house is going to be worth that price. Right? So you have to take that in consideration. In today's market, unless it's a very unusual property, people care about that stuff now where before they didn't care about it. Right? I was just like, whatever, I don't care if it appraises or not. Right? So you have to keep an eye. And just to tell you like what's going on, just to wrap up the real estate market stuff. Here's a headline from the Case Shiller group, which is a think tank that analyzes real estate all the time. Prices no longer increasing by double digits. Right? That's a headline. Before, double digits, when we started, that was amazing when we had 10% or higher price appreciation. Now it's like prices, the headline is they're no longer getting double digits anymore. I can't even believe people have an expectation that they think that their house is going to increase by double digits every year. I mean, and that's what people think now, and it's kind of crazy.
And we can't forget, and this, we got Ross on, we can't forget the pressure that the insurance is putting into the mix as well. So I'm curious, what's the prediction with and maybe you guys talked about it last week, I wasn't on the show, but what's the prediction with the insurance market for this year?
I mean, I think you'll see, kind of the same. I don't think the rate increases will be as significant as they have been, but I still think everything's going to keep going up. But, I think we talked about it last week. We won't see any relief from that new bill probably for another year and a half, 2 years, just to get all that new data shaken out and so see what the rates do in like 2 years.
That's what that's exactly, Ross, what one of the industry experts said. I read an article that they said that next year don't expect insurance rates to ease at all. It just won't be going up as high as it's going up now at the rate it's going up.
I see a think tank article here, Jim. It says, don't expect double-digit rate increases on your insurance.
Right, but they're still expecting, yeah, but they're still expecting, though, they are still expecting some kind of increases over the year. And you're right, they have to do data analytics to figure out where they're at, and they won't know where they're at until they put all this stuff in effect and see what the results are. So there's time lag here that we have to deal with. It's going to be really interesting about that. So we'll see what happens in the market next year. The last thing I want to leave off on that, if you're thinking about either buying or selling next year, but you really don't know, right? You'd like to, you own a house, you really like to get out of the house and live in a new place or a new area, but you're not sure because your interest rate's so low, or you're afraid that what the heck am I going to buy on the back end? And, how is all this going to work? And I'm not even sure. I'd like to do it, but I'm not sure it's going to work. Or if you're a buyer who's been renting for a long time and been really beaten up by your landlords, rent increases all the time, and you want to protect yourself from this, but you also feel, how am I going to afford it with the kind of interest rates we have and the sellers being so unrealistic? I threw in some terms in there, okay, that actually are talking points. Are the sellers unrealistic? Some of them are, some aren't. And you got to find the ones that are going to work with you in order to get what you want. Yeah, as buyers, you have to remember that we don't ever want to put you in something you can't afford. Don't do that. But don't make the assumption, a blanket assumption, that this is the way the market is. Because yes, the market is a blanket. You can make these blanket generalizations that I'm making on the show, but each case is individual, and you're only looking for one house when you're a buyer. You don't need to buy 5 houses, right? You're just looking for one that meets all your needs, hits all your checkpoints, and you could afford. And if you just
has a payment that is comfortable for you, and that you're comfortable that your income situation is stable. Yeah, I mean that's the most important thing in my book is, can you get into a payment that's affordable, and then in the future, if you have the ability to save with refinances or something like that, you take advantage when the opportunity presents itself.
And now you're on the roller coaster ride, or the ride, okay? You're not in, that gives you the potential when the market rises and good things happen in the real estate market, you're involved in that process. When you're sitting out on the sidelines waiting to see what's going to happen to make your decision, if things start turning around before you get into that market, you probably miss the market, because by the time you realize things are turning around and then you get involved, you're probably paying more, or something's happening where it's costing you more for that. It's almost better, as long as you can afford it, it's better to get into the market in a market like this in a way. And then when the market turns to stronger market, you're already in that market because you own a house, you own a property, and now you're going to profit participate in that market going up. But if you're
sometimes, Johnny,
you get anything.
Yeah, when you're on that roller coaster, sometimes you got to hold tight, and sometimes you throw your hands up in the air, but you're on it. What you don't want to do is fall out of the roller coaster. You don't want to fall off.
So who here likes roller coasters? Raise your hand.
I got both my hands
Wow,
up.
I'm the only one that doesn't like roller coasters. I'm not a big roller coaster guy.
Ever? Never?
I mean, I've been on them and stuff. I've been on a lot of them, but I'm just not a big roller coaster fan. I don't know why.
You love the roller coaster that is the South Florida real estate market.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. I'm on the roller coaster ride every day. Ross, I was thinking about you last week because we did a segment about iBuyers and the iBuyer programs, and how all of them, I shouldn't say all, but how the great majority of them not just blew chunks, but they lost hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars a quarter because they don't know what they're doing. I just can't even imagine. We're in one of the strongest real estate markets ever, and they went bust. It's like, and then we're trying to let them to tell us what our home values are, like Zestimates and stuff, right? And they couldn't even handle their own business, right? But they're telling us what our houses are worth, right?
Jim, we haven't talked about that in a while, but are real estate agents fearing that their job is going away because of this stuff?
It's only been 1% of the market through all these years.
Yeah.
Only 1% of the market. So it's like it's less than 4 sell by owners right now. But Ross went and bought a property. I think it was 2021, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And then he bought it. And I think he bought it through, wasn't a regular buyer, right? I mean, seller.
Zillow.
Right?
It was Zillow.
Yeah, he bought it from Zillow. And then later, didn't another iBuyer program come to you?
No.
You were just thinking maybe
a real estate agent had reached out.
Oh, real estate. Okay. So Zillow ended up selling the property to Ross at a loss, right? If I'm not mistaken, they paid more than what you bought it for.
They paid like $265 for it, and I bought it from them for $247. And they had to pay commissions on that too.
And they had it. Did they paint it and stuff? Was it freshly painted and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean it was clean on the inside. I painted it.
Yeah, but even if they painted it, because they're going to pay more than regular people are going to pay. They paid thousands of dollars for that paint job, right? So they definitely, and then they had to carry it, right? And then you got to pay. Well, I don't know how it works for them because it's a LLC, but I was going to say then you got to pay capital gains, right? Which you probably have a loss on it.
They had a loss on that because they had to pay commissions.
Yeah. It's just ridiculous what you watch them do that. And I remember I kept watching as a realtor, looking at the comps and going, why would they pay that for that house? I don't get it. I kept saying that.
They had to offset all the capital gains they made on their positive sales.
Yeah.
They just wanted to be zero. They want to be.
Yeah. So it's just such a big change. And I think that you made a right decision, Ross, by not selling the unit because you could have made, at the time, a decent profit on it. It wasn't a killer profit or anything like life-changing profit, but it would have been a nice little profit. But I think because of the low interest rate and everything you had, because you locked in early, holding on to the property, I think is like was a good, and it's a great location. So I think it was a good decision.
Yeah.
But is it cash flowing, Ross? So here's the investor stories. Is it cash flowing?
Yeah, they rent for like $2,500, I think, in there, and so the payment's a little bit lower than that. So.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
So there you go. Okay, so just continue talking about trends. International buyers, we haven't talked about that in a while. So with international buyers, Florida is still ranked number 1 in the country for international buyers to buy in the United States. What I was surprised about is the percentages. So 24% of all international buyers buy in Florida. So if they're going to buy anywhere in the United States, almost 1 out of 4, 24% are buying right here in Florida. That was pretty amazing. Number 2, California. I bet you
that's in a very specific region of Florida too.
South.
Well, actually, Orlando's very big for international buyers, and the West Coast is getting more hits than the East Coast for international buyers. So it would probably be South Florida, West Coast Florida, Central Florida.
What were you thinking, Panhandle, Mike?
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Yeah.
LA.
What are you talking about?
He was thinking Panhandle, I'm sure.
Yeah, lower Alabama.
Yeah.
Yeah, up there, right? North Alabama. So 1 out of 4 in Florida, but California is number 2 choice for international buyers, only 11%. So 1 out of 10 is going there. And then you have Texas, 8%, Arizona, 7%. And this is the surprising. The next one is New York, which you figure would have been much higher. Only 4% of the international buyers are choosing New York as the state to move to. I was surprised. I thought that would be much more cosmopolitan than that.
Yeah, I was going to say only 4% can afford to buy in New York.
Well, there you go. Now, the other thing it broke down was where they're all coming from. So the biggest countries, the most international buyers are coming from China. And then number 2 is Canada. Number 3 is India. Number 4 is Mexico, Brazil, and then Colombia. But Florida and Arizona have a little different trend than the rest of the country. So we're more Latin American based, China isn't as big for us. China and India is not as big for us, and we have way more South American or Latin American countries, I should say, actually coming to Florida. A great majority compared to them moving to other parts of the country. So Florida and Arizona are a little different than the rest of the company, where we have less China and India. Now, I've dealt with a lot of China customers from China and, investors and stuff like that. I have through the years, but not many from India. I haven't really dealt with many Indian nationals. So that's kind of interesting. So I haven't experienced that. So anybody that is from India and they think about buying in Florida, call me, because I'd love to have that new experience, because I haven't done that. Right?
FloridaTalkRealEstate.com. FloridaTalkRealEstate.com.
Oh, and just a shout out to for the foreign national buyers, you don't have to have cash to do that stuff. There are loans available for foreign nationals. And so if you're looking to buy, maybe figure out what and invest over here. There are loans out there to do that. So if you got family living abroad, have them call.
Yeah, and be careful if anybody's promising you a nice flight for free to Martha's Vineyard. It may not work out exactly as you
don't go
planned.
there.
Yeah.
Don't go there. And it's very expensive. Did you see how much it costs them to fly them out there? It's like $3 million or something.
Good number, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it was like this crazy number. It's like, really? Government, government work at its finest. We're the government. We're here to help you. So a couple other things. I wanted to get into this with you. It's 10:30. I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break. And this is what I want to do. Ross, when we flip over on the other side, there was a good article I talked about things to consider if you're doing short-term rentals like Airbnb or vacation rental by owner. And not just doing it as an investment property where you're doing it as a side gig and you're using your regular home and just doing it once in a while, not like full-time Airbnb. And talking about the insurance implications about that and like different kind of policies you should consider. So do you mind if I ask you a bunch of questions about that on the flip side?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. That's what we're going to do.
Excellent. Q&A, and obviously plenty of time remaining. If you got a question as well, you're welcome to join us toll free, 877-927-6969. It's a 4-minute break. We'll get back. We'll get right to your phone call. You make the call. We'll take that call. Of course, if you're not comfortable on the radio, remember your one-stop real estate shop. It's FloridaTalkRealEstate.com. It's access to the entire team. Pros. You get them all at FloridaTalkRealEstate.com. You'll even see the hotline. You can call it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 888-973-7828. 888-973-7828. Find that hotline at FloridaTalkRealEstate.com. Back in 4 minutes. Great to have you with us every Saturday. Happy New Year's Eve from your friends at Florida Talk Real Estate right here. It's Real Radio.
We're everywhere you need to be. Find your favorite show at realradio921.com.
From the Gordon Partners Weather Center, have you or a loved one been injured through no fault of your own? Call 561-333-3333 or go to fortheinjured.com.
I'm meteorologist Jennifer Collins with CBS 12 News. Mostly sunny through this afternoon, still warm with high temperatures in the low to mid 80s and a south wind between 5 and 10 miles per hour. Quite and comfortable for this New Year's evening as temperatures return to the 60s after midnight with patchy dense fog developing again Sunday morning.
This report is sponsored by Mattress Firm. Gift yourself great sleep during Mattress Firm's Dream December sale. Get a king for a queen price or a queen for a twin and save up to $700.
Hey, it's your boy Johnny C here, host of Florida Talk Real Estate. They're tops when it comes to helping people buy and sell houses. But Florida Talk Real Estate is so much more than that. For 5 years, I've watched these guys help thousands of our listeners with any real estate need. They couldn't do it without their sponsors, who are experts in their fields. Check it out. Jim DePola, powered by Keller Williams Realty. Their team specializes in helping people sell their house for top dollar, and buyers get great deals on the purchase of their home. That's what they did for me and my family, and I couldn't be happier that I hired them for my real estate transaction. Mike Rauch from The Mortgage Firm is one of our favorite guests on the show, and he is the mortgage guy. Whether you're looking for a refi or a mortgage to purchase a new home, Mike Rauch will get you the answers you need. The Mortgage Firm is licensed to do loans in Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia, and they have local offices that cover all of South Florida. So if you're thinking about a refi or a new mortgage, go to the mortgage guy, Mike Rauch, and find out what he can do for you. The Mortgage Firm, Inc., NMLS 189233, Florida license MLD 78, equal housing lender. The law office of Paul A. Krasker has been specializing in real estate law for nearly 25 years and has the professional team you need. Upside down with your house, Paul's team can help you conduct short sales, loan modifications, even if you're behind on payments. They also help you with foreclosure defense and bankruptcy. They can even help you get a student loan modification and repair your credit to get the score you need. Paul's full service team has helped thousands of our listeners, and they can help you too. Trident Title LLC is the largest privately owned title company in Florida. When you need a title company to complete a refi, home purchase, or sale, Trident Title has got you covered. Not only do they offer competitive pricing, Trident Title has attorneys on staff to make sure if you have bumps in the road declaring title that you can get the job done. Beware, not all title companies in Florida have attorneys on staff. Trident Title does and complies with all the new federal regulations released last year. Ross Komarinetz, owner of Brightway Insurance, has been helping our listeners get great rates on homeowners insurance plans. Haven't checked your homeowners insurance policy in a while? This is a great way to help reduce your monthly mortgage payment. Ross can also help with renters and auto insurance. Ross is only a phone call away and can usually get the answers you need same day.
Call Ross today at 561-425-6228 or drop by his office at 873 Donald Ross Road in Juno Beach.
So now you know why I'm happy to be part of the Florida Talk Real Estate Show, the longest running real estate show in Florida. And all these sponsors are just a phone call or a click away. Just call 888-973-7828. That's 888-973-7828. Or go to floridatalkrealestate.com. That's floridatalkrealestate.com. And don't forget to use the most accurate search engine to find your new home or ask for a free home valuation because floridatalkrealestate.com has you covered. That's floridatalkrealestate.com.
This is Real Radio 92.1 and 101.7. Real talk for the Palm Beaches and the Treasure Coast. This is Florida Talk Real Estate with Jim DePola and Johnny C. Got a question for the show? Call us live at 1-877-927-6969.
That's it. Toll-free number. We got about 23 minutes remaining on this Saturday morning, New Year's Eve. Great to have you with us. Real Radio 92.1, 101.7. Maybe you're worldwide, somewhere out in the great big world, listening on your free download, your iHeartRadio app. Or thanks for maybe streaming with us on Facebook or YouTube. That's Florida Talk Real Estate on both. And remember, Florida Talk Real Estate is a .com. It's your one-stop real estate shop. Johnny C., that's me. Mike Rauch, the mortgage guy from The Mortgage Firm. He's with us. Hello, Mike.
Oh, hello. Hi. How are you? What a nice day it's shaping up to be. We're back. I guess winter is over. Is that fair to say, Johnny? Winter over yet?
Our winter feels like it might be over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're back to the 80s.
Yeah, that was fleeting. I still got some firewood. I'm like, man, it sucks to burn the wood when it's 80.
We did. So you guys did the Christmas Eve show. I didn't do that because I was busy. We were hosting Christmas Eve, and the whole plan, and we ended up executing it, but it was an outdoor dinner, right? So I got the new deck. We had the tables all decorated out there. And then I'm scrambling on Christmas Eve morning to go find space heaters to try and heat up our outdoor table setting place because it was freezing, right?
I thought you had those big, tall, like commercial ones. No, like you see at the restaurants.
No.
Oh, you need to get those for that deck.
I considered those, and I said, do I really want to spend, $200 for one of those and propane, and then just for one dinner? I was like, no, people can tough it out.
I think that you should have it for the future, though. You should have a couple, like two of those at least, because that's a pretty big deck and it's pretty cool to use, and it would be nice to have when you need them.
Yeah, I guess so. What do I do with it? The 364 days of the year that I don't need it. Where
Well,
does
if
it
you
go?
put some covering over the deck, you have no cover deck. It's
Make it
all,
look like a tree or
it's all
something.
open.
Oh,
Put some
decorate it
branches
like
on
a
the side.
tree. Like that.
That's
I
what
have
we
a
do.
pergola, Jim.
We're just brainstorming,
Oh,
trying
do
to come
you?
up with the ways for you to feel better about your purchase, Mike. That's all we're doing.
Yeah, or I
Ross
could just
Komarinetz is
not
with us.
purchase.
Brightway Insurance, Juno Beach. Ross, always good to see you, my friend.
Good to see it. It is good to see the sun now. Last weekend it was nice to have that cool weather, but it was just so dreary.
Yeah, it was. It really felt like to me it didn't feel wintry, but it felt fall, like the fall, like up north in the fall. It looked
It was
like.
depressing.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of just didn't feel as crisp.
Well, if there's anything that's nice, though, maybe there's some clothes that you look forward to wearing that you can't otherwise, right? Like you just literally can't any other day of the year. And this was my saving grace. That air conditioning had like 5 days of rest, 6 days of rest. The meter wasn't all constantly. So like I was like, man, that next FPL bill is gonna be sweet.
Did any of us end up kicking in their heater element on their air conditioning units? Me neither. Me neither.
I set my thermometer at my place at 75. I never touched it the whole time. I got cold a couple of times where I had to have an extra blanket, but I was too lazy to go up and change the thermostat.
I can't even imagine the smell that would come out of my furnace if I turned the heater on.
Oh, right, exactly.
Even imagine. Jim DePola, Florida Home Pros, Keller Williams Innovations. He's our fearless leader. Hello, Jimmy D.
Hey, good. I'm sorry. I forgot you didn't introduce me yet. Sorry about that. Hey, I wanted to go into Airbnbs because actually next month was a year that we went out to the Super Bowl to deal with Renegade Sports and Entertainment, the sports agency I own with Jared Perry, CPA, and a bunch of other guys over related to there. We just had a birthday party for Jeff Rauch, who's one of the main principals of the sports agency over at Palm Beach Gardens nightclub. And we had Drago over there. You should check him out. Drago's going to be a new entertainer that we picked up. Really talented guy. If you want to find him, he's on Instagram at Drago Sounds, is the name of it, DRAGO Sounds. And check him out. I think you really enjoy it. He's got a really good, very nice vibe, hip hop stuff, and it's pretty cool. But anyway, we're out there, and what I was thinking about was yesterday, and I saw this article, Ross, was when we went out to the Super Bowl, we had to book a bunch of rooms because all the hotels were booked up because we didn't know we were going out to the Super Bowl. We weren't going to the Super Bowl for the Super Bowl. We were just going for the events around the Super Bowl for Rico Cash, the rapper that we were representing. And the place we ended up renting, Ross, was a regular person's home that wasn't a full-time Airbnb, even though we got it from Airbnb. They were only renting it out for that event because, the Super Bowl is so big, they could get outrageous prices for their house. So what they do is they just leave for the week or the weekend or whatever you book it for. So like if you're going to pay me this amount a month per night or this amount of month rent per night, I'm out of here. And then they just leave their house and they let you stay there for a while. So it's like a side gig. If you were doing that, what kind of insurance policy would you need if you're just doing a side gig, or would you not need to use a special insurance policy or anything for something like that?
I mean, technically, you would need a policy that allows for short-term rental, because typically the policy that they have is an HO3. That's an owner-occupied policy form, which doesn't allow for rentals. So if that's something that they're doing, they would want to make sure that they had the right policy. But then at that point, you got to figure out if it's cost effective, because sometimes those policies are a lot more expensive because there's just not that many carriers that offer them.
Okay, yeah, and then what is involved in that? So the short term, what happens if you're only doing short term for short term? Like you're only doing it a couple of times a year. You're not like running a full Airbnb out of the property.
It's a short-term rental.
So it's the same thing. So whether you're doing it a couple of times a year or 50 weeks out of the year, you're going to have the same type of policy?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because technically if you're renting it out short-term, it's a short-term rental. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're doing it like twice a year, if something did happen when it was being rented out, the carrier would definitely be able to say, sorry, claims denied. but you're just,
It
most
seems pretty
people are
risky.
not going to get the correct policy for something like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, so you have, like, for example, in your policy, you got a personal injury protection, Ross, 300,000, something like that. If you're renting it out and somebody has an injury on your property, and let's just, a homeowner's fault or some reason that they would sue for they're suing the owner, your insurance is not going to cover any of that.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
That's what I was going to ask. They mentioned something about landlord protection insurance. I've never heard of that before. Have you heard of that, Ross?
I mean, that might be referred to as what's called an HO4, that where the person who's renting the property gets their own insurance with liability. So, there's a layer of protection between, an injury and the owner, with the renter's liability. I don't know if that's what they're referring to, or if they're just referring to, hey, this is a short-term rental and you're considered a landlord and you need to get a separate liability policy for that.
Yeah. So don't mess around with that, because you know what? Saving the money, if you're going to do something like that, this is my advice. Okay. If you're trying to save the money and skimp on costs to try to make a profit and you get away with it, great. Right. But then when you have the problem, you usually eat up all the profits you made in the past, plus the future, trying to deal with something because you kicked the can down the road and you rolled the dice. Right.
Is there, Jim, is there some sort of language in the contract to rent that would exclude them from being able to make a claim or something like that? So maybe like, hey, I'm renting it to you for a week. You are, there's no harm type of thing, like a release.
The article I read said, good question, Mike. The article I read said that sometimes, like when you join forces with like Airbnb or those other type of companies, that the cost of doing business with them includes some type of insurance coverage for certain things, but they're all not the same. So you really got to check into it.
It's not just liability. If those people burnt the house down.
Right. Right. Or they get in a fight with the neighbor next door. Like something like that happens. Like they get too noisy and the next thing you know, there's a big fight or something. You just never know all the stuff that could happen. And speaking about short-term rentals, you don't hear about Airbnb as much as you did about a year ago. Don't you notice that you haven't heard a lot about Airbnbs? Airbnb market's changed a lot, and people have to understand this. One of the things is that it became oversaturated. I don't know, oversaturated, is that a word? Too saturated. Okay. And what was happening was you would look and see what other Airbnbers were renting in that neighborhood for. Then you would base the purchase of the house that you wanted to buy to meet that Airbnb number. But what you weren't configuring in there was how many other people were doing the same thing. And after a while, there became so many Airbnbs available in a certain area that if you were basing your money at the top end of the prices of what was renting in that area, you might not be getting that, and you might not be getting the occupancy rates that you were expecting, and it could create big problems.
I mean, I see that, Jim. We're going to Colorado, skiing, and we stay in a community where it's almost exclusively like short-term rentals. Like people bought in that community to rent it out during the season, and so you see that there's a lot of competition because all the homes are very similar. They were built around the same time. I think the key, if you're in that business, and this would be a good segue, is to decorate your home as if it were the 1970s. And that's going to give you an edge over the competition.
Yeah, because you're so forward thinking about what's going to happen in the future.
That's right.
There was a house for sale in Juno, and it was competitively priced because inside was exactly like it was when they built it in 1972. Blue carpet, the little railing with the step down, the furniture was all back from all then. And my thought was, dude, buy that and do it as an Airbnb and like bill it as a 70s style Airbnb and take a step back in time.
Yeah, exactly. Like you walk in, you have the 70s show running on TV. As soon as you walk in, it's just looping 70s show. right? Saturday
Soup
Night Fever's
Kitchen
on
is
all. You have the DVDs and the well, no, you have 8 tracks. But were there 8 tracks in the 70s? I don't even think there were 8 tracks. Were there?
Yeah.
There were 8 tracks in the 1970s?
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't that what all cars came equipped with? The 8-track
I don't
player?
know. My cars weren't fancy enough that I would have an 8-track player in it back in the day. I had to put them in myself. I don't know how many stereos I put into cars when I was a kid.
I actually had a buyer, Jim, closed this month, who bought a home that was all original inside. It was such a great location. So you would say, like, you're looking at the picture of the home, you're like, geez, that needs a lot of attention, right? Original carpets, original furnishings, right? I'm probably like 80s style, but location, Johnny. It was, a couple blocks away from the water, in a neighborhood where homes had been, updated. And so got a good deal, I think, for the location, but it was like a step back in time.
So here's the tricks with the Airbnb in today's market. I'm saying Airbnb, but short-term rentals. Okay. Number one, make sure you're in an area not oversaturated, unless you can purchase a property that is superior to all the other stuff that's being rented in that area. Now, that might mean you have to fix it up to make it superior, and you have that in your business model, or it's already fixed up enough where it already is superior to the other things that are being rented, because you're going to have to offer value, because there's a lot of people being very down about Airbnb right now. There's a lot of people complaining that Airbnb is getting as expensive as going to a regular hotel. And that was the whole point of Airbnb, is that it was lower than what you could get at a regular hotel in that area. That was the whole value of the Airbnb, right? Now people are saying, you want me to rent your place, pay for all the maid servicing. They have a lot of extra costs that really aren't included in when they show you the nightly rate. Then you add on all these rates. And a lot of the Airbnbers are really gouging the customers with extra rates besides the nightly room rate. And then on top of it, they're like, and we can't go downstairs and go to a restaurant. We can't go downstairs to the local bar. We don't have a community pool. We don't have all this stuff that you can get at a hotel. And
they want you to clean it up when you're done too.
I'm sorry?
They want you to clean it up.
Yes, a lot of them make you clean up the place afterwards. I know, it's crazy. And a lot of them don't have daily maid service or room service.
Yeah, but remember the advantage that they have, Jim, is that you can rent a house, right? Like you get a house for your family, right? That's got all the amenities. And if you want to cook for the family instead of going out, like that's still the advantage of that. I'm just thinking of that because
there's like 0% chance you're going to be filmed in a hotel, Jim.
You're going to be
like that voyeur aspect.
The film.
You're going to be what?
Filmed.
Some people like that voyeur aspect.
Oh, I know. I know exactly. I've used a lot of Airbnbs over the last couple of years for athletes, for parties and things like that, and have booked them like big houses where they can bring their whole family and stuff. And they're a great service. It's worked out really well for us over the years. I'm not down on them, but what I am down on is it was like this trend that everybody was just following. And what a lot of those people weren't really business people looking at it as a business. It was fast, easy money. But now that everything's become so saturated, the money isn't there the same. I keep thinking about a house I had in Jupiter where we put it under contract at, let's just say 500, and the appraisal came back at 435. Can you imagine? And the buyer bought it because they were going to lose a $50,000 deposit because they bought it cash, right?
No contingencies.
No appraisal contingency, no inspection contingency, but they weren't expecting in a million years to appraise. Actually, it appraised $115,000 below the purchase price. So it was either lose $50,000 deposit or pay $115,000 above appraised value. They did. Why? Why did they go forward on the deal? Because based on the Airbnb values at that moment, they could still buy the place and project a profit. But now that neighborhood isn't as popular as it was for Airbnbs. And I know that family, that I shouldn't say family, the investor is probably taking a bath on that property right now. Because if they were buying it for a regular rental property as a regular long-term rental, they would have had to pay about, they would have had to pay about at the appraised value in order to make it a decent long-term rental. So you have to be really careful. So don't just go out there and do it and think you could do it on your own. Just don't start watching YouTube videos on how to do it and then just go out there and just go out on your own. You need to talk to a professional that understands this stuff and has your back and trying to make sure you have the right decision. One of the things that we learned about over here at the Florida Home Pros is that sometimes it's way, way better to tell people not to do something because it's not in their best interest in the long run and point that out to them, as disappointing and frustrating as it might be for them to hear that, but to tell them that, because that way when they buy something, I always say when you're starting out in a different field, you're flipping houses, let's say, right? You're buying houses, fix them up and sell them, or you're doing Airbnb. The first 3 or 4 deals, you got to hit home runs on them because you don't know what you're doing. So if you're basing it on numbers on home runs, and then you have all the little screw ups of the things you wish you knew that you didn't know when you were doing it, you have some cushion in there to take up some of the losses for the mistakes. And then that way in the future, you won't make those mistakes again. And you're kind of insulating yourself. And then that way a home run might only turn into a double if you make a whole bunch of screw ups that you weren't expecting, but you still got a double. But if you go in there super tight trying to make everything work, and then you find out about, oh, I didn't know this, I didn't know that, I didn't know this, and the next thing you know, you're upside down. Don't do that. You don't have to do that even in today's market. So just be real careful about that and make sure that you're insured right, because if you don't insure yourself right, you have a problem. All the profits you thought you were going to project, bye-bye. See you later. So don't do that.
I feel like that there must be insurance options out there. They can't, I think we're just not in tune with that game. There's got to be coverages.
Oh, there is. There's coverage for it.
Are we talking about 70s decor yet, Jim, or not?
Yes, now we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that now. So I thought this is the best quote of the article. Do you know how they described the 70s interior decor? The decade that time forgot. Oh, wait, what did they call it? Wait. They called it, the decade that taste forgot. Oh. I like that. The decade that taste forgot. So the way they described it in this article, they're predicting that the 1970s, this maybe not the exact styles, but the concept of the 1970s decor is going to come back. And I'm like, why would you think that? Because really, if you think about it, 50s decor can be kind of cool, right? It's kind of retro cool. 60s, same kind of thing. I don't know about the 80s. The 80s is kind of like the 70s in a way. And 90s, there isn't a lot going on with the 90s either. But the 70s, that's the one thing that everybody goes, oh, shag carpeting, harvest gold appliances, or avocado green appliances. Back then, this is funny. Do you remember back in the day on your countertops, you used to have the pull down like retractable things to hide your appliances, right? So like if you had your toaster or your I'm trying
bread
to think.
box.
No, what was it called? Food processors really back then, right? Food processors, right? And they put that in the countertop, and instead of being on your countertop just being exposed, they have little special compartments with pull down drawers, like roll top desktop drawers.
Yeah, I could picture it. Yeah.
Remember that? And stainless steel appliances were just white, and stainless steel appliances were unheard of in the 70s, according to this article. You just couldn't find any of that stuff back then, right? It didn't exist. And
yeah, you had the enamel, avocado. Would you say orange?
Yep, the gold shag carpet. It had to be shag. Right?
I was looking at some pictures, Jim, and I the other thing we're probably missing about that time was the clean looking furniture, right? So you what immediately comes to mind is the oranges and the reds and all that and the shag carpet, but there was also like wood furniture, kind of like a postmodern or contemporary style, very clean looking, not super modern.
They called it
but warm.
minimalism. They called it
Huh?
minimalism, Mike. That was in the
Okay.
article. You're very
Yeah.
good about that. I can't believe it's time. I had no idea. I would have stopped talking about the other stuff earlier. So sorry about that, guys.
I tried.
Yeah,
I tried.
officially out of time on a Saturday. Enough time though to say, Mike Rauch, mortgage guy from the mortgage firm. Happy New Year to you.
Hey, Happy New Year. Thanks for a great 2022, everybody, and we'll see you next year.
Yeah, look forward to it, and thank you for a great 2022. And thank you, Ross Komarinetz, Brightway Insurance, Juno Beach, for always bringing the festivities on a Saturday, and obviously for all the work you put in for all the folks out there. Happy New Year to you and yours.
Happy New Year. Thank you guys for everything, and talk to you next year.
Thank you. See you next year.
Jimmy D, Jim DePola, Florida Home Pros, Keller Williams Innovation. Thank you for everything, my friend, and Happy New Year to you and yours.
Happy New Year, everybody. Can't wait to see you next week on our 11th anniversary. Don't forget to check out next week.
Let me ask Jimothy, are you guys live today, Jimothy?
No, we're not.
Okay, so please enjoy what the offerings is coming up next. And Jimothy, Happy New Year to you and yours. Please be safe out there. Happy New Year to everybody that's being out there and tuning in every Saturday. Remember, Florida Talk Real Estate is .com, your one-stop real estate shop. Know it, use it, love it, and share it. Please be kind to each other. Enjoy yourself tonight. Be safe. Happy New Year. We'll see you next Saturday for an 11-year anniversary show, Florida Talk Real Estate, right here on Real Radio.